Good afternoon and welcome back to AIADA's AutoTalk. I'm your host, Rachel Soleimani. Before we get started, a few quick reminders as always. Anyone who has registered for today's program will be receiving a copy by early next week. And if you have any questions, be sure to enter them into the Q&A bar at the lower right-hand side of your interface. Today, we welcome our friends from ACV Auctions, Stu Zalid, Director of Strategic Partnerships, and Randy Barone, Vice President of Business Development. Stu and Randy, I know you have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to let you take it away.
Rachel, thanks very much. We appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with everybody today and hopefully give you some new ideas and some thoughts about something that obviously has not been as significant as it is today because the market has been such that appraisals, it was pretty hard to make a mistake on an appraisal over the last 36 to 48 months. Unfortunately, or fortunately, really, the market has made a dramatic shift backwards towards a more standard or even an accelerated depreciation schedule. So I think if you take off kind of your thought processes for a few minutes and just listen to what Randy has to say, you're going to find that there's some very interesting ways and things that you can all do to make that appraisal better. And the better the appraisal and the more interactive it is with the consumer as you're making the appraisal, the better opportunity you have to finalize a deal and take in a piece of equipment that you can turn around and resell at a profit. So with that, Randy, take it away. And thanks to everybody for their time. And we look forward to giving you some great information.
All right. Well, really excited to be able to talk to everybody from the AIADA, and I can tell you that real excited to be able to bring you this presentation. I'm going to bombard you with a tremendous amount of information. I tend to talk extremely fast. The good news is if you're going to get this recording, you're going to have the ability to get this deck. So with that, this is all about educational. I'm going to share a ton of information for you. Unfortunately, I always build in more than what I actually have time allotted for. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. So one of the things that I did already is I looked on AIADA's website, and there was some really good information about buying vehicles directly from consumers. It has nothing to do with this meeting, but it is such an important area, an important topic. We actually cover another workshop that's called Owning Your Used Car Market that actually covers a tremendous amount about buying vehicles from the consumer. You know, like this information that's up on the site, that it's vitally important to become inventory independent and be able to acquire as many cars from consumers. So I added a couple of things that are on here for you guys. You know, when you look at NADA's data from buying cars off the street, I'm an old enough person and I've been doing this long enough, over 36 years, to be able to look at and say that this number used to be a decimal number. That means a decimal point of vehicles that are bought off the street. In 2021, it actually rose to 8% of a dealer's inventory coming from street purchases. That was actually out of necessity. And then if you look at what happened in 2022, it actually rose to 13.5%. Still well below what the top companies that are out there are doing. I will tell you this is all because dealerships had to. My concern is if inventory started to come back, dealers will stop buying so many cars off the street, but they really shouldn't. You should be in more control of buying cars. The opportunity is as big as it has ever been. If you look at some of the big publics, and don't let your brain shut down when I say this, CarMax, Carvana, you can say things about how they do certain things, but the one area that they're very good at, CarMax on average, at the time I did this report, had 264 locations. They bought 20 cars a day from consumers. Same way with Carvana, they were smaller at the time, but they buy 32 cars per day. Texas Direct in the Texas market, before they got bought by from Vroom, was buying 100 cars a day from consumers. This is a huge untapped potential. Unfortunately, you can see that these companies bought over 1.5 million cars in a year's time. Those cars come directly from the franchise dealers like yourself. So I would tell you, huge opportunity to get involved in. This is not a plan. Having a sign on your lot, a widget on your website. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having your own white label trade solution, regardless of whoever you get that from. Every bit of your marketing, everything you do, QR codes, your digital retail, everything flowing into that white label trade solution. And then we supply you with, you're going to get a copy of this deck. I don't have time to go through them all now, but I'm giving you over 40 different unique methods that we actually bring into our stores that actually help feed that giant engine and will help you guys acquire more cars than you ever have. I can tell you, I speak at a lot of 20 group meetings. I go around the room. How many cars have you guys bought from consumers last month? And I get the same responses: 2, 3, 5, 7. I'm talking about, I've helped dealers get to, our company has helped dealers get to buying over 100 cars a month from dealers and even more. So these are all free things for you. Love to be able to share more with you at another time based on that. Even some of the things like from Texas Direct. You know, I went to a restaurant. I came out of that restaurant. This was actually on my keychain. The reason why it has a line on it was folded like a tent on my dashboard. I got so fired up from it. I ran back into the restaurant and asked, how much did they pay y'all to do that? These are from non-car people. The guys that own Texas Direct were non-car guys. They said, oh, we don't pay anything. They didn't pay us anything to do it. If you look at the back, it's just our valet material. So just the way the opportunity is just so large. Jumping into what this meeting was all about, appraisals. So don't let the title fool you. I know everybody's like, oh, we've been doing appraisals forever. We know how to appraise cars. I'm not talking about that. It is literally one of the most important areas in your dealership. It can make or break your new and used car sales. It can crush your reputation. It can hurt your overall or improve upon your overall dealership profitability. And when you look at it, appraisal's been around forever. Ever since the first car was released, that motor wagon, somebody had to put a number on that at one time, I assure you, and I guarantee you now the appraisal on that is off the charts. But there has always been appraisals. The difference on it is it went from a gut decision back when I first created one of the first used car inventory management solutions that was called AAX, and then coming out with another one that was called Red Bumper, and now working with ACV, building our own used car inventory management solution. These products have generated what's taken place from looking at appraisals based on a book to using history to using a tremendous amount of data points. These have become more and more complex off of what we're doing, but we have to understand that it's more important than ever. And why? Because now we're appraising cars at the dealership. We're doing it in the service department. We're doing it with online. We're appraising cars at people's home and work. We're even appraising cars out of state. So without being able to see the car. So this has become a more and more complex process than ever off of what's going on. The other area that's added to that is the cost and complexity of what's happening. Missing damage on vehicles, I can tell you in today's world, missing damage on cars now, it didn't matter the last couple of years because what? We could sell anything. Didn't matter if we had a car that we paid too much for. It didn't matter if we had a car that had a little damage on it. People were buying everything that we had. That market is dramatically changing, and we know that we're still in a massive used car shortage, and customers are becoming more and more picky at what they're doing, and we're getting back to where we have to do real used car management. So by missing information, missing appraisals, missing data can literally ruin the opportunity for profit off of what we're doing. The average dealership, this is NADA's data. This is the average retail selling price. It is off the charts right now. You can see where it went from 2016 to where it is today. If you look at that increase, let me just tell you, consumers' incomes didn't rise at that same level. And then you take that $30,800 and then add in the high interest rates, that is doctor death. So we really have to be on top of our game. It ties into buying cars from the consumer because the more cars we buy from consumers, we're getting a better quality of car. We're getting a car that turns faster. We're also having the opportunity to slow down and look at that car and really make a good decision on buying that particular vehicle. Over the last 10 years, what has changed? Vehicles went from having 2 airbags to more than 10 airbags. Navigation systems now come on all vehicles, touch screens, all that. It's crazy. Collision warning systems, blind spots, front and back alert sensors, automatic braking, parallel parking themselves. These cars drive themselves now, adaptive cruise control. Windshields went from $79 to thousands of dollars. Headlights used to be $100. Now they're thousands of dollars. Some of them are absolutely insane. So the more things we miss today, massively can make a horrible decision, and the list goes on and on of what's changing out there. When I look at appraisers at the dealerships right now, and I do a lot of in-store consulting, I speak at a massive amount of 20 group meetings all around the country. Who's training an appraiser? I know how we move them up, and then all of a sudden, you know, the person that was there, you were kind of learning under them, but who trained them? Nobody's really spending the time to actually go in and really train an appraiser and have them look at things. We've been appraising vehicles the same way we have for a very long time, and I'm talking about digging in and doing something completely different. Ongoing training. We have to adapt. The vehicles have adapted. Massive things have changed with the vehicle. We have to really go back and get our people trained, spending time in the shop. I can tell you, if I took a used car manager right now and had them spend time in the body shop, if you have a body shop, sending them in an off-site body shop if you don't have one, spending time with the mechanics out there, spending time out with the certified mechanics, seeing all that process, what you can learn from that is off the charts. And when you look at real recon, the best thing you can wind up doing at your store is look at what your used car manager is putting in the recon box in your inventory management system, whether you have vAuto, ACV Max, whatever you're currently using right now. But look at what is the current recon and then look at the real recon. We run reports that actually show this is what you said the recon was on that car, but man, you missed it by $2,000. In today's market, when you're doing that, your cost to market just went right up through the roof. You ruined our profitability. That didn't matter when your grosses were $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. It does matter when we look at what grosses were pre-pandemic. And we want to make sure that we're holding in that gross. So we got to do a better job. We got to monitor and see that recon before, that recon afterwards. Wholesale retail profit by appraiser. That means I'm looking at the individual appraiser who's ever putting numbers on these cars. I know some of your stores, you're wearing many hats now, and you may be a sales manager that's walking out and appraising a car. That used to be okay when it really didn't matter. In today's world, we have to have people that are very good at what they do, very good at looking at the damage, very good looking at data to put the right number on the car and also put in the right recon amount for these vehicles. I'll give you some examples. When I do this in 20 group meetings, I throw out a repair. So when I show you this particular image, I can't tell you how many different dollar amounts I've gotten back on that. Literally, this is a $100 PDR dent. When you look at it this way and you look at this repair, when you see it, this car was hit right there in the door. It looks like they might have hit like one of those yellow poles at a bank or a shopping mall. I can tell you that this one, the dollar amounts are right through the roof. This, running it right through, that's an Audi, running it right through the Audi dealership, so we're not sending it out to some unknown place. Their internal cost on that, $4,350. I can tell you how many used car managers would have missed that massively because I've done that in the stores and in these large meetings. What about this one? These are tires on an IS 300. These tires are speed rated tires, but you know what? When we're looking at these tires, one of those tires is mismatched. Guess what? What does it cost to get that one mismatched tire? I can tell you it's $450 for that particular speed rated tire. But even more importantly, what happens when it's a certified car? And somebody replaced all the tires on this car, and now all of a sudden you bring in that car and you want to get it certified. Missing that one little thing costs you a full set of those tires because you can't certify that car if it's got the wrong size or the wrong speed rating in that particular vehicle. So we have to get very, very good in what do these things actually mean when we're looking at it. What about this one? 6-inch crack. That's a SQ8. That windshield in that car. I can tell you when you look at it, putting in an aftermarket windshield was $1,500. Then the car had to be programmed to match up with all the different systems that are in that particular vehicle. But if that car was a certified car, putting in a non-certified windshield. So this car pulls up on your lot to be appraised, and you're an Audi dealer or whatever brand yours is, and you miss that that's not a certified, that's not a factory OEM windshield. You're talking about spending $2,500 to replace a perfectly good windshield to put in the right windshield. So huge problem off what we're doing. We have to get back to doing things better. We have to get very sharp at what we're doing. When I look at certified vehicles, we do a horrible job as dealers of selling those certified cars. I can tell you that I do this all across the country, and I walk into stores and I say, why should I buy your certified vehicle? And the salespeople say, oh, it comes with a better warranty. We can get you better financing. Guess what? Any independent dealer on the planet can do that. CarMax does that. They have better warranties, better financing. We just can't rely on that. We really have to train and educate our people. And when I look at the certifications, this is an Audi certification, I'm sure, with your particular brand. But when you look at the complexity, if you look how small those little lines are, there's a technician that's going through each and every one of those areas. And this is a double column when you get down to the bottom. And this thing's not just one page. There's another page of it, double columned. And look how many points are on that inspection. If I was a consumer and I knew that you did all this to this particular car and went through that on it, there's a third page of double road. When I see all of that and you went through it, and as a salesperson, I've got these on my desk and I understand the benefit and the value of selling that car. But guess what? How important is it for your used car manager, whoever's appraising that car, to understand that the car is going to be taken through all of these areas? They need to spend some time out in the shop Watch that certified mechanic go through a certified inspection, and you'll realize that little bitty things that you didn't think were that big a deal, oh, the tire depth on that particular car, or the right tire on that car, or the right windshield on that car, or all the gazillion other things that go into that certification. And when you miss them, it gets spent. And we have to spend all that money on recon. And when we do that, it affects our gross profits. It affects our cost to market and could actually make the car unsellable. And you know what? When you do that, then it creates wholesale issues in the dealership and creates some massive problems. So knowing that certification, looking at all those pages of looking at that. So if I sat down and talked to a manager right now that's appraising, I would turn around and make sure that we had all of our key people. So when an appraisal is being done, I want a person that's got their thumb on the pulse of the used car market, that understands repair, understands recon, and really knows how to put a real number on that car and address that car. This person is an expert in all these areas. And their attitude towards an appraisal. When I walk into stores and I hear a used car manager say, oh man, I don't want to go appraise a car out in service. I'm so tired of these tools that we've got that are bringing customers in. These customers want way too much money for their car. I don't want to appraise any more cars. Or worst case scenario, I've got a salesperson that's all pumped up. They just sold the car. The customer has a trade and the salesperson's coming to that used car manager, and the used car manager's attitude about that appraisal is, hey man, I'll get to it in a minute. Versus that used car manager going, wow, awesome. Let's go take a look at that car. Let's go look at it together, buddy. Did we have a walk around with the consumer, being pumped up and keeping that sales process? So attitude towards an appraisal, off the charts. Inspect the vehicle or have it inspected. You'll see what I mean by having it inspected. Some of these cars, if they've got an accident indicator on a Carfax or an AutoCheck, we really need to dig into those cars deeper. We need to understand how to pull the rubbers on the car, look for spot welds on the car. If you see issues on the car, dig into it so we're not missing things. And you understand what a factory weld looks like versus an aftermarket weld on that car or a rivet in that particular vehicle. Appraise based on needs. That means when I'm looking at this car, I'm actually looking at, if I'm on vAuto like many of you are, I'm looking at and matching it up to my YMM data, my year, make, and model data. How bad do I need this particular car? Then I'm matching it up with market data. Then I'm matching up, if this car doesn't meet my needs and it doesn't match up with my inventory management system, I'm building a strategy on that car to make sure that I'm putting all the money in the car. But at the same time, I'm not killing us because this one may not be the best retail vehicle. Then if I'm part of a group, I want to make sure that if my group has that same brand, that I'm not being the expert and sitting there saying, I know what this car, I can put a number on it because I'm the supreme being and I know more than everybody else. In today's market, if you're not communicating and your group has the same brand, there may be some incentives because these incentives are going to start becoming heavier and heavier. And if you don't know it, the books are not there yet, the auction data is not there yet because these incentives are coming out. You could massively be missing a car if you're not communicating. Knowing what store needs what car in a group. I was the national used car director with Asbury Automotive Group. My Honda store is trading for a Hyundai Elantra, and I need that Elantra in my other stores like I need air, but my Honda store is appraising that Elantra like it's a piece of junk. We need to know as a group, every one of these cars is important. When I say stay in your lane, don't sit there and try and appraise something that you have no clue on. I can't tell you how many times I've been burned on an exotic car or a vehicle that I have no knowledge in. Make sure you're staying in your lane and get help on a car if you don't know about that particular vehicle. Some of these vehicles are very complex. They can have different packages on them. If you've ever looked at a Bentley, I can tell you that goes down to personalization. There's so many options on that car. You can miss these vehicles by thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars off of what you're doing. So when I tell you to stay in your lane, don't let your ego be so big that you're not going to stay in your own lane. Carfax, AutoCheck, these today, it wasn't a big deal a couple years ago or all the way up to the last couple of years. Today's market, Carfax and AutoCheck issues are a massive whack to the value of that car. These customers do not have to buy those vehicles. And if you're buying them and ignoring that or missing that, it's going to cost you dearly off of what you're doing. When we look at that manager the same way, look at the wholesale trending. I know this car drops faster than this car. I'm putting this car on a very short leash. Looking at short and hot data. What do I mean by that? Your vAuto system tells you to look at market data. Market data can send you in the wrong direction. That means if I'm a Toyota store and I've got the world's largest Chevrolet dealer in my market, guess what? It's obviously going to say that Chevrolet Malibus are a great vehicle and I need to stock those and sell those and they're a great vehicle for my inventory. But because that data is looking at just market data in the whole, that car may not be the best car for your store. You can't buy it as cheap as that dealer. You don't have the certified programs to sell that car. So when I look at market data, short and hot. There's not very many of them in my market. There's a lot of sales, but there's not very many of them. So the car is short, the market day supply is short, but there's sales in my market. Those are the cars that I'm going to stock. Those are the cars I'm going to step up on. I look like a nerd when I'm at the auction or when I'm looking at a car and I actually paint meter the car. I can tell you that many people, oh, I'm so good, man. I can rub my finger along the paint edge. I know if the car's been painted. Let me just tell you, these guys are getting better and better at what they do. They wet sand the edges. They can make it where you'll never be able to pick up a car on rubbing your finger on it. I watch appraisers appraise cars in the rain, on a rainy day, appraising a Highline car and not using a paint meter. I'm sorry, but nobody's that good. The only reason why you would do that is because you're not using your own money. If you've ever owned your own used car operation, you wouldn't do that when you're using your own money. Don't do that with the dealer's money. We have to get better at what we do. Don't worry about looking like a nerd. Have all your data, have your information right in front of you, and appraise that car the right way. Set a timer on some of these cars. If you want to try a car, set a timer on. This car wholesales, this car drops in value really fast. This car is not a great one for my inventory, so I'm going to put it on a very short leash. I'm going to put this car in my inventory for 15 days, and that's it. I already got a buy bid on it. If the car doesn't sell, I'm getting rid of that particular car. If it's legal in your market to pre-sell a vehicle, the software that we develop and many of the other ones that are out there, when a car comes in on an appraisal, I appraise that car, we trade for that car, my system builds an automated description of that car. I can launch that car up the same day out to all my listing sites. The system builds a description on it. I took a couple of appraisal photos of that car and I'm able to launch that car up. So by the end of the day, that car's already listed up online. I'm already getting hits and clicks on it. That's if it's legal in your market, do that and make it happen, because these cars are on a clock. It's a reverse clock. Cars are like bananas. They don't get better with time, so we have to be better at what we do. Used car managers that are using these inventory management systems and not taking pictures, I can tell you, you're doing yourself a disservice. Walking around the car, taking pictures of the damage does a few things. Consumer sees you taking pictures of that damage. They know that car has damage. You taking those pictures, looking at that appraisal the next day, next 2 days, and sitting there trying to make a decision on it, those pictures bring back, oh yeah, that's the one with damage. Or pictures of wheels that were on the car when the customer brings the car back, the wheels have been swapped out. You'd know that if you took real pictures of that car. Fully describing the damage helps build value. So when we're sitting there having a save a trade meeting like we should be having today, we used to have save a deal meetings. Now, because trades are so important, we're having save a trade meetings. On top of that, these inventory management tools, this is a screen out of your V-Auto, showing you that YMM data, showing you that a lot of you don't even know where this report is. It's in your dealer reports. You can actually go in, it'll actually tell you how many vehicles you're missing, how many you need, how many you need to wholesale to get your inventory in line. This is based on factual data. In the systems that we built, I actually break that out and actually show you these are the cars you need to keep your day's supply. But then I take it one step further. I'm actually telling you the years you need, the trims you need, the colors you need, and the price bands you need. Then I'm showing you that short and hot data. So I can actually rank that car up against that information. I know when they're short. I know when they're hot. I have all that information. All of us are looking at it. I know a lot of you've gotten ingrained to be able to look at where your car ranks or pricing the car right below someone else. We have to understand that when you're getting these cars, you miss recon, you miss that walk around on that appraisal, you miss anything that's adding that. It doesn't matter where you said, it's just going to wipe out your profit, wipe out where that car ranks, or wipe out where you're pricing that particular vehicle off of what you're doing. I can tell you all that detailed data. You can see some of these other points that are in here. That particular one where it says ACV estimate, that goes down to 147 territories, and it's updated every day. So it's an extremely accurate number that is there. So utilize these data points, not just looking at your MMR, not just looking at your books, but using that real type of information that is there and available to you. And then looking at things like this. If I'm a dealership group, can you imagine all of my dealers that are in my group? We already have their buy list. We already have what they need. We already have what they'll pay for these particular cars. So we've built that kind of matrix in place. And then when a car's appraised at a sister store, instantly you get an offer from that sister store to help you acquire and appraise those cars. That's having SAM built into your appraisal tool, smart way, unique way. Some of the largest groups in the country are utilizing that right now. Real life scenario for you. You just traded for a car or bought a car from a consumer, and this particular car has a Carfax accident indicator. What does a consumer see? Even though that car looks beautiful, what does a consumer see about that car? This is what they see. They think you're that big bad dealer that bought that car. You bought it, it was hit by a freight train, and you just built it back. In reality, this is actually what happened. Both these cars have something in common. They both have the exact same Carfax. The sad part is the car on the right is really what happened to that car. So how do we let a consumer know that? Earlier when I told you about inspections, this is what I'm talking about. Having a real inspection done on that car and having a real report. You can't wipe away what's on Carfax or AutoCheck. I'm the only company out there that can actually update a Carfax or an AutoCheck, and we'll put that inspection right in there. And these inspections are very detailed, so now I don't have to hide from a Carfax or AutoCheck, and I can buy more cars because this car actually lets me know that, you know what, that Carfax wasn't that bad, the car's damage wasn't that bad, and now I've got an inspection report I can show the consumer to head that off. I can do that online on the VDP page as well. When we're looking at it, top missed items that we miss on an appraisal. This is from looking at all the millions of appraisals that we have going to our systems and also the things that our inspectors look at. Dashboard lights, check engine lights, drivability issues. We have a lot of used car managers that are not driving cars today. They miss those things. Lower body damage. They don't get down and look at the very lower end of that car. The car was hit from underneath, or these skirts that are on these cars are torn up. Tire wear, not on the outside of the tire, that looks real pretty, but the very inside of the tire, because we're not turning the wheel and looking at it. All these things, paint damage, all of that, wheel damage, underestimating the damage, all those things, missing remotes. These remotes today are $400, $500 and higher. When we look at AC and heater issues, I can't tell you how many used car managers today don't look at a heater during the summertime, but if you've ever replaced a heater core, I guarantee you'd look at that again. When you're looking at it, cracks in the dash, these tools and these items, there's about to be a strike possibly on the parts side of the house. I can tell you if you're needing parts like a dash or a specialty trim item, it's going to become very, very difficult like it was during the pandemic to get some of these parts. But at the same time, these parts are extremely expensive and they're very difficult to repair. Electrical issues, we see tons of those, and transmissions. We don't drive the car. We don't drive the car fast enough to hear it shift. All these things are major, major issues. I put together an appraisal checklist. I don't have time to go through each and every one of these, but I can tell you that all of these that are listed, I have been personally burned on. So how did I build you that checklist? Off of my past experience. So what do I mean by that? Well, a couple of these that are on there. A diesel truck. The diesel factory exhaust was removed. I had a customer that came in that had the exhaust system in the back of the truck. In my mind, because I didn't know that particular Ford truck at the time, even if you put that exhaust back on the truck, because the truck was ran without that exhaust, guess what? The computer registered that truck as being ran without that exhaust, and it voided the warrant. In my mind, if I put the factory exhaust back on, I'm going to have a truck that's going to be under warranty, and nobody's going to know the better. I was wrong on that. So understanding all these things, not driving a car fast enough to see it switch out into third gear, all of these things, a heater during the summertime, all of these areas. When you see me appraise a car, my hands just go fast on it. When I'm appraising a high mileage Honda, I'm taking off that oil cap and I'm actually shining a pen light. That's right, I carry a pen light and I shine that pen light in. When I see sludge around that oil cap or on top of that motor, guess what? This car's got, even though those cars normally run forever, this one's not going to run forever because the person didn't change the oil on it. We have to get back to doing these things. That checklist, I'm not telling you to go back to old school, but I would literally dig in and see some of these things, and it'll save you a ton of headaches in the future. Current appraisal tools, obviously you've got all this amazing data, all this information. What I'm telling you is you can still massively miss vehicles. I'm talking about the future. So what do I mean by future of appraisals? We actually have devices that we're going to wind up giving the used car managers. That means you're going to be able to hold a device up to the windshield, even in the rain, and it'll find chips and cracks in the glass. Why? Because these windshields now are thousands of dollars. We actually have AI that actually detests that on this particular car, the left front frame rail actually rusts out on this car. It'll point out those issues. It'll pick up on catalytic converters, oil leaks, rust detection. We have devices that can actually listen to the sound of the car. If I gave you a device right now that could actually smell, when you put that car inside the car, it'll actually know that there's a burrito under the rear seat of that car that's been there. That's why this car has a funky odor in it. Or on the outside of the car, the system will pick up on the exhaust of that car and let you know that that car's not running right. It also listens to the car, listens to the vibrations of the car, and actually knows that that's a higher end noise or a lower end noise. It knows the difference between a belt noise and an engine knock. All of these things, why am I telling you that? We have a device that we lay under the car. You drive the car over, it stitches together 1,000 images, it gives you an undercarriage. Can you imagine, as you, a used car manager, having these tools that in a matter of minutes, you've got all this detail so we don't miss cars as much? What about when I talk about a salesperson and I talk about the salesperson's role on that appraisal? So right now, when I look at it overall, salespeople doing a silent walk around on a car, salesperson helping sell that newer used vehicle, supporting the F&I department. So that salesperson's role off what they're doing is they're doing that. When I say silent walk around, I know that sounds old school. I'm talking about being new school, where we go back to that. Technology cannot replace that. We go through supports. We're working that deal. We're finding out information that helps us on cash down, deal structure, everything that we're doing. Under appraising a car and over appraising a car. Under appraising a car, what's the problem with it? We miss out on a tremendous amount of trades. We miss customers. We hurt our reputation. What about over appraising a car? We weren't aware of incentive. Certain brands ran over the new car department ran over the used car manager, putting too much money in the car. All of these things. There's trouble with over appraising, trouble with under appraising. Under appraising causes low trade ratios, poor customer retention, poor and new used car manager sales, poor and new used car sales, salesperson turnover, and increased auction purchases. And even though we're part of an auction, that's really the last thing I want you to be able to do. So having that in your store, very, very important. Look to book, single most important number to know in your dealership. What happens when your look to book is low or your appraisal trade closing ratio is low? Kills your sales, both new and used, kills your retention, killing your salesperson retention, causes high auction purchases. When it's high, make sure you're keeping an eye on it. Even though your look to book may be high, let me just give you some things that are going to give you a false read. In vAuto right now, many of you are bringing cars from your service department, service loaners into your department. You're appraising those cars. You're putting them in your vAuto system. Well, 100% of those cars come into your inventory. That jacks up your appraisal closing ratio and your look to book. So you think you're doing a better job, even though you're not. Many of you don't complete appraisals in those tools, which gives you a false reading as well. In your vAuto system, when you don't complete an appraisal, it doesn't count it against you. You really need to know that appraisal closing ratio, know that if it's high, know that it's low. You should be actually over 50% right now and breaking even or making money in wholesale. Very important to know that particular area. When we're looking at salespeople, not knowing, if I got a salesperson in my dealership, their trade closing ratio is 10%, my store's running at 50%, that particular salesperson, there's something they're doing. They're not just unlucky. There's something they're doing. That's why we have to train that particular person and get them up to speed. They're killing the dealership. We have to train and role play with them. I talked about the lost art of a silent walk around. I can tell you that this needs to be a process of every deal. Dealership needs to agree on that process, have questions that are required at the trade-in time, and have questions that there is when there's no trade. If the customer doesn't have a trade, we need to ask. Obviously, the average person has a trade. Maybe that customer's already got to deal with CarMax or Carvana to sell their car. You want to draw that out of them and have technology to help hold in that process. And if you're a group, that needs to be consistent across all your stores. Some stores have a paper-based process. That's great. We've actually built an electronic process. Customer can go through. As we go through, I can do it at home, I can do it at their work, or I can do it in the dealership. Walks the customers through real questions. As we're walking around that car with the customer, we're learning about the vehicle. Then it actually gives the consumer an offer that we can utilize. But then more importantly, it actually breaks out why. And with some of the new technology that is out there, when that customer's at home, takes pictures of the car or walks around the car, the system will actually find the damage on the car automatically. So technology has come a long way in these areas. Some of our top stores use recaps like this. So when we did that walk around with the customer, it's not my number, Mr. Customer. This is what you said about your car. Your car had that tire damage. Your car had that wheel damage. Your car came in at 83% of that particular book that you were so interested in. But the good news is our store gives tax credits, and look what it wind up doing and offering that back to the customer. Pros and cons of holding on trades. I know a lot of stores like to hold on cars. I can promise you the pros of it, hey, obviously you're getting more gross than the consumer. The customer wants bigger discounts. You can obviously meet that with them because you're holding back on the trade. The problem on it is causes poor trade closing ratio, hurts customer retention. Many of these customers' spine when they're in front of you is only a 1/4 inch wide. When they're online, the backbone grows 3 inches wide. But we have many customers walk out of our stores and we think that we're all good on it, and we're holding on that trade, and that customer winds up going to giving that car to someone else or doesn't come back to your dealership at all. So huge matter of issues in your systems right now, in your inventory management systems. You have tools in there like missed trades. You really need to focus on that. My hair would catch on fire if I knew that vehicles we were appraising are going to my #1 competitor and they're getting those trades. So we have to be very on top of our game. I'm going to give you these key takeaways. You're going to get a copy of this deck, but I would take a look at all these key takeaways and on that information. I appreciate the time. I ran over a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I covered as much as I possibly can with you. I'll open it up for any questions that might have been asked during the presentation. But guys, I would be more than happy to do this complete presentation for you if you inquire on it or any other presentation. And I certainly appreciate you being a member of the AIADA, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you.
Randy and Stu, thanks so much for joining us today. We know you're both very busy guys, so we appreciate you guys taking the time. Again, you will all be receiving a copy of this webinar by early next week. Join us back here next Tuesday, September 19th, as experts from Bank of America give us an interest rate market update. So be on the lookout for promotions on how to register. For more information about AIADA, visit aiada.org. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.